afternoon. I'm Jeff DeBoer, and I'm President and CEO of the Real Estate Roundtable. And as you know, we've been engaged actively with Congress and the administration on a variety of policy initiatives to try and help people and businesses as we all try to get through the situation that we're in regarding COVID-19 and the economic problems that it has caused to us. Today, I've got good news to share with you. And we're going to be joined by a roundtable member who'd like to talk about his process of actually securing a loan through the PPP. But before we do that, let me just remind people this has been a very big week here in Washington. Obviously, the PPP, the Payroll Protection Plan, got underway full scale throughout the nation. The Fed made its announcements concerning new lending facilities for businesses that don't qualify under the small business definition for those with 500 to 10,000 employees. We'll see that roll out in the coming days. And the TALF was extended by the Fed to AAA rated legacy CMBS. Now, obviously, we want to extend that down the credit ladder to all investment grade CMBS, but these are positive steps going forward. The PPP itself, as you've seen from our 8-point plan that we're actively working with members of Congress on, we think there are areas that need improvement concerning the aggregation of employees, concerning how the calculation is run off of payroll. Maybe it should be run off of expenses, how independent contractors and so on and so forth are treated, a variety of issues. And we're also looking at the pandemic on a going forward basis, a pandemic risk insurance program, because once the economy does reopen, we want to be in a position where we're not stalled out because businesses don't have the kind of protection that they need. But that's for another day. Today, we want to talk about some good news and about how this program is actually starting to work. One other thing I should say, a few other things. The tax world has been busy, by the way. If you're not aware, the IRS issued several positive statements this week. One, allowing partnerships, which usually cannot refile their returns, but partnerships can refile for 2018 and 2019. The IRS also issued an announcement last night concerning dates and timelines, and this should give relief to people who have deadlines for perhaps 1031 exchanges or opportunity zone investments and stuff, and those timelines are being changed. And you can see all of this on our website, so please do. But today, we have the pleasure of having Mr. Al Dwoskin and his team with us. And Al's a longtime roundtable member, is a fairly substantial property manager of residential and commercial and retail properties here in Northern Virginia. And like all roundtable members, obviously very smart, very active in civic activities and business groups, and very politically involved. So Al is going to share with us his experience under the PPP. So with that setup, Al, why don't you just tell us what has happened? I had a great call with you this morning when we talked, and all of a sudden you said, wow, we just were approved under the PPP program. And I was so excited. I wanted you to share some of your thoughts and experiences. So I leave it to you, Al. Go ahead. Tell us about your...
Good afternoon. Our business is primarily retail shopping centers, predominantly with small stores. And in addition to that, we have a portfolio of about 2,300 residential units. And we own and operate the shopping centers and apartments with partners, and we have a management company that functions for both. Now, our primary concern with the PPP program has been for our retail tenants. They've been adversely affected. The shelter-in-place rules and the business rules have pretty much closed 75% of our tenants. And so they have not, they are not sheltering in place by desire to close their businesses. They're doing it because of the pandemic. Once the bill was passed, that the stimulus bill with the payment protection, the payroll protection plan, we made it a point to send out a memo to our tenants to be aware of this. Be ready to file an application once the applications are made available. And that was our primary focus. A few days later, it occurred to us that as a real estate management company, we were qualified to send in an application as well. And, with that, we started investigating it. And Natalia, our Vice President of Finance, did an outstanding job, researching the program and putting together all the information that was needed for the application. But I'm going to give a shout out to the bank that helped us here. We're primarily a bank with J.P. Morgan Chase, and I called the head of the banking division I work with on Friday a week ago to ask how this was going to be handled. She coordinated our communications with the real estate department that handles our type of business. And over last weekend, we were in communication with the folks there, getting them ready to take applications on Monday. And Natalia will explain what happened from then on, because she was the one primarily involved, not only in preparing our to make an application, but in getting it together and putting it through with the bank. But and I'll let her finish this story, because it has a really remarkable ending, considering all that we're hearing about how PPP isn't working. We have a story of real success.
Al, that's, I think, how many of us, certainly from a policy-making point of view, thought of this as a program that would help get funds to those people who have lost their jobs or those businesses that have been closed, so they could meet their obligations, including rent, to owners and managers such as yourself. And it's become apparent that this is also a program, very apparent that it's also a program for those businesses as well as tenants. So it's great. Natalie, why don't you, or Natalia, I'm sorry, continue the story.
So I'll start right where Mr. Laskin left off with the initial conversations with J.P. Morgan. So we had our first contact with them Friday afternoon, and then throughout the weekend, they kept us informed as they had additional webinars and training. We had a call with them on Saturday afternoon. They prepared us for what requirements would be, what we would need to prepare. And so at the same time, I was taking that information and pushing ADP to improve their reporting. Originally, the report that ADP had prepared was for the entire company, and we needed to be able to select certain employees so that we can exclude some categories that needed to be excluded. So we continue to work with ADP and JP Morgan. We were in touch by Sunday afternoon. JP Morgan was ready to accept applications. I just needed ADP to finalize the report. And by Monday morning, I had all the information needed, plus from our internal accounting department, I had gathered information about the rent and utilities. So I started working on the application. By midday Monday, the application was in with JP Morgan. I heard from them Monday night. There was there was an error with the business code. Actually, their application was asking for an industry code. I went to the tax return. I used the business code from the tax return, and apparently we should have looked up the Northern American Industry Code. So then once we learned that what the correct code is, we resubmitted the application Tuesday morning. The application, yes.
I was going to say, when you looked at your employees, were these all full-time employees? Did you include any part-time employees? How did you deal with that?
So one of the reports from ADP provided a total head count, but it listed full-time employees and part-time employees. So because I had read, the information about this program, I knew that we have to provide full-time equivalents. So then I did a calculation, and therefore the number of employees that was entered in the application was full-time equivalents, which was obviously, because of the part-time employees, was a little lower than the total employees listed on the report from the ADP. So that was actually one thing that JP Morgan had a question about as part of their review. Their quality control asked a question about that, because the number of employees on the applications was different than what the report from ADP showed. And once I explained to them the reason for that number, they were okay with it. That was yesterday morning. The conversation about the number of employees was yesterday morning, and today, this morning, we already received the funds from JP Morgan. So
that is really a fantastic story. Were there any questions that were on the form, that certifications or anything that made you uncomfortable, or made you, Al, uncomfortable? Were there anything that caused you pause that you were certifying to in any way, shape, or form?
No, I didn't feel that way about any questions.
Good. That's really terrific. And you don't have to talk numbers or anything. I'm sure there's proprietary information, but do you feel that this should substantially allow your company to move forward for the next couple of months without laying off of people, and will also allow you to meet your other obligations, whether they're insurance or utilities or whatever that you have?
It will definitely be a great help, yes, to help with payroll, right? To cover payroll for the next few months. I would say, the only thing that could be like better with this program, for us, because we, payroll is a big part for us. We don't pay that much in rent or utilities. So with the restriction of using only, of using at least 75% of the loan, in order to be forgiven, of course, to use 75% of the loan for payroll.
I think the point is, most of for your tenants, you would want them obviously to help their employees and to keep them on, but you would also want them to be allocating as much as they could possibly do to service the rent obligations and so forth. It sounds like in your situation, most of your expenses are more heavy payroll, lighter on rent.
I think we'll be doing a little more homework on the allocation of other expenses that can be allocated toward the grant portion of the loan.
Yeah.
But if again, a large portion of this will certainly be converted to a grant. If some of it turns into a loan, that's the program. It's still more than 75%, likely between 85 and 90%, will turn into a grant rather than a loan. And if we only are required to pay 10% back at some time in the future, that's still quite a help.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to take much of your time. I really value this. I know that Roundtable members and other people will be happy, really happy to hear a story like this on this weekend, at the end of this week, that is positive. And it sounds like you
Absolutely.
got through the system in a reasonably easy fashion. And I think that will be surprising to some people. Would you like to, anything else? Any closing?
Just the application went in Tuesday and funded on Friday. I mean, this is really, we didn't expect that.
Close for this one. And thank you both, and wish you very good luck and good health and good Godspeed to you. And thank you. We at the Roundtable are going to continue to march ahead. We've got some changes to the PPP and other things that we're going to be working on very hard. And so thank you both, and wish everybody a happy holiday. Thank you.